Hi guys, my name is Paola and I am going to be doing a presentation on the Ottoman Empire. Let's get started. So who created the Ottoman Empire? The empire was created by Turkish tribes in Anatolia and it grew to be one of the most powerful states in the world during the 15th and the 16th century. This empire lasted more than 600 years and it came to an end on 1922. It was a really strong empire that kept growing because they kept conquering different states around them, and that's how they kept expanding and just growing as an empire. However, on 1922, the empire came to an end, and I am going to take you from the beginning, which is around the 15th century, and then all the way to the end, which I believe is the 18th century. So here's a map of what the Ottoman Empire looked like in 1654. And then we're also going to have Nadim Effendi, one of the most celebrated Ottoman poets. And then on this corner over here, we see, I don't know if my little square is in the way, but okay. We see Ottoman miniature painters described. So as we can see, their culture and traditions were really artistic, and people just like to express themselves through writing and paintings. Over here. And okay, so the first period of Ottoman history was characterized by continuous territorial expansion, like I mentioned earlier. The Ottomans were leaders of the Turkish warriors for Islam who fought against the Christian Byzantine state. And then we got here the little green, that's how the Ottoman Empire started on the 1300s. So keep in mind, look at this little state, and then we're going to see how big it grows throughout the years. 1324 and 1338. That was the beginning of the first era of the Ottoman Empire. It was Orhan's son, Murad I, extends the Ottoman conquest northward into Thrace, culminating with the capture of Adrianople. So, like you guys remember, that's where the Turkish were from. Much of Anatolia falls to the Ottomans during the reign of Mehmed II, who ruled in 1444 through 46, and then ruled again in 1451 through 1481. He captured Constantinople in 1443, and he makes it the capital of the Ottoman Empire. Mehmed lays the foundation for the Ottoman rule in Anatolia and Southeast Europe. I got this information from this hyperlink right here if you guys want to look more into it. Okay, so now it's 1520. Remember how small the little green thing was on the 1300s? So now the empire has grown and occupies all of these green areas. So the Bayezid II reigns during this period. Bayezid extends the Ottoman Empire in Europe. He adds outposts along the Black Sea and puts down revolts in Anatolia. He also captures Venetian reports to establish bases for complete Ottoman naval control of the eastern Mediterranean. So on this period of the Ottoman Empire, it was more working on building their navy so they could protect the growth of the empire and in the same process conquer more states and keep growing. Okay, so remember the leader we talked about in the last slide? He's over here again in 1512 through 1520. Bayezid's successor, Selim I, so he came after him. He comes to the throne in 1512. He establishes firm control over the army. Again, we were already starting to see that they wanted a stronger navy. However, Selim I is going to come and unify the army and focus his ruling on fighting and creating different tactics for the army to attack and to protect. During his reign, which lasted until 1520, the Ottomans moved south and eastward into Syria, Arabia, and Egypt. Selim doubles the size of the empire, adding to it all the lands except Iran and Mesopotamia that had made up the Islamic state known as the Caliphate. By acquiring the holy places of Islam, Selim cements his position as the religion's most powerful leader, which is again because he did focus a lot on war tactics and on building a stronger army. Leading Muslim intellectuals, artists, artisans, and administrators come to Constantinople from all parts of the Arab world. They make the empire much more of a traditional Islamic state than it had already been. So moving to the late 17th and 18th centuries, this is what the Ottoman Empire looked like in 1774, which is still kind of the same as on the 1500s, except they added some land over here, these little islands down here. The Ottomans fell in their final attempt in 1683 to capture the city of Vienna. This and subsequent losses led them to relinquish Hungary in 1699. The empire continues to weaken in the 18th century, losing a great deal of their territory. So in the 1500s, that's when the Ottoman Empire was thriving and they gained a lot of their land during this period of time. However, as we proceed during the 18th century, that's when they start to not do so good and they start to lose wars and just lose the land they had fought for. In 1876 through 1923, Abdulhamid II rules the Ottoman Empire from 1876, but a revolutionary group known as the Young Turks arises in opposition to his authoritarian regime and deposes the Sultan by 1909. The Ottomans fight on Germany's side in World War I. Ottoman defeats in the war inspires an already fervent Turkish nationalism. So just fighting and winning makes, of course, I mean, once you win, you're going to feel proud of where you come from, which is exactly how the Turkish felt. The post-war settlement, which greatly reduces Ottoman territory, outrages the nationalists. A new government under the leadership of Mustafa Kemal, known as Ataturk, emerges at Ankara, Turkey. The last Ottoman Sultan, Mehmed I don't know that number, but flees in 1922 after the Sultanate is abolished. Turkey is proclaimed a republic in 1923, and Ataturk serves as its first president. So this is the end of the empire. The Ottomans had been defeated and been replaced by Ataturk, which is now the first president, as we read in the last sentence. Okay, so here are some pictures of the Ottoman Empire, and then here is what it looked like in 1812. And this is what it would look like if we were looking at it from a worldwide perspective. The religion. Of course, we mentioned a lot of Iran, Islam, Turkey. So the Ottoman Empire was an Islamic polity that originated in early 14th century Anatolia, like we have talked about before, which is where the Turkish were from. Islam had been established in Anatolia before the emergence of the empire, but between the 14th and the 16th centuries, the religion spread with Ottoman conquest to the Balkan Peninsula and central Hungary. So whenever the Ottoman Empire was created, most of its people were Islamic, and as they began to conquer more states, of course, they took their traditions with them and enforced it on the people. As we know, they did have a strong military and probably a low tolerance for freedom of religion. The end of an empire. In later years, the Ottoman Empire began to weaken as they started to lose land. In the later part of the 19th century, it became known as the sick man of Europe. The empire was defeated in World War I remember the war with Germany, and it broke apart after that, and it was replaced. And here's another picture, and this is the hyperlink what I got some information from. And that is the end. I hope you guys have learned as much as I did about the Ottoman Empire and how important conquering and just expanding is, but also being able to be a good leader and know what wars not to fight in order not to destroy everything that you've built. And yeah, so I hope you guys liked my presentation. Thank you for listening.